Beautiful people, welcome back to Organizing an ADHD Brain, where the perfect place to start is right where you are. I'm your host, Megs Crawford. I'm a professional organizer, an ADHD coach, and a fellow work in progress. Because let's be honest, we're all work in progress. This season 3, we're talking about the messy middle. Not about the before, not about the after, but all of the stuff that comes in between. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that comes in between that perfect before and after picture. So let's jump right in. Hey, welcome back to the show. Coming in hot with another solo episode. And this week, we're going to talk about goals. How exciting is that? I want to share with you some personal stuff. If you've been following along for a long time, you know that my husband and I sold our house in Colorado this year. We moved to Massachusetts, and my husband has been looking for a job. He just got one. He got a job offer a couple weeks ago now, and we are so excited. This feels very real and feels like a lot of momentum for us because we have been trying to figure out what to do for the last couple months. Now, luckily, we sold our home, so we feel very privileged to have had some funds to live off of. But what a journey this has been. If you're not aware, I have a small business, right? This is my podcast and I coach, and I'm still very new. I'm building systems and I'm figuring out what the mission and the vision is of my company as I continue to grow it and help everyone figure out how to have less in their life and live more. So I will continue to share with you what that looks like along this journey. Thank you so much for tuning in. This week in my Organizing an ADHD Brain community, I asked the members what they wanted to work on. And this month they voted to work on goals. I kind of love goals. I come from a corporate background, so I'm like, yeah, goals all day. But also I feel a little cringy when I talk about them. And sure enough, when we had our first kind of meet and greet for the month the other day, there was another member who was sharing about how annoyed she was about setting goals. And I was like, yeah, preach. I totally get that. And it reminded me of a friend of mine. I was in a coaching group with her, actually a podcasting coaching group. And we were talking about goals and she was sharing how much she hated them. So we changed the word goals to vibes instead, just to see if that could work with our brain a little bit better. And I liked that. It felt real in the moment, but it was just really interesting to be reminded about how cringy the word goals can feel. So know that during this episode, I feel that and I'm empathetic toward it because I have been in the position where I'm like, holy smokes, how could I possibly make another goal when it feels like I can't hit what I'm already trying to do? It sounds overwhelming. Let's talk about why. Because as we are going through trying to make changes, whether it comes to organizing our homes and not letting in as much clutter, getting out the stuff that doesn't belong there anymore, it takes change. And we have to know where we're going. And that's part of the messy middle, right? The change, the discomfort, the nervous system overwhelm, all of that comes into play. Goals help us understand whether or not we're on track. So let's talk about why they're so disgusting at first, because I also think they're really good. They can be disgusting and good. Two things can be true at the same time. Okay, so hear me out. For ADHD brains, goals can feel very dysregulating. And part of that is because it could be that someone made us feel like we were inferior and that we couldn't actually hit goals at one point or another. It could be a certain phrase that we were led to believe was true. But another reason why goals could feel really disorienting is because we try to set too many all at once. I'm going to tell you all my goals. My goals this holiday season, without actually having set them, just some thoughts that are rolling around in my brain right now. Today, I thought about having a cookie decorating or craft night for Charlotte and Cora, my girls, with all of their friends where I meticulously put together curated little spots for them to make the cutest little crafts this holiday season. I've also thought about having a holiday party where we invite some people over and just start to build our community a little bit more. I also have a really great day planned in my head for what we want to do on Thanksgiving. I also have all of my Christmas list stored up in my head so far. I've already started to understand what my Christmas cards look like. I'm already trying to fill up my weekends with different plans that I have going on. I do have a holiday budget, but I haven't really truly planned for it. I've just started to maybe put some effort toward it. I also have probably the most expensive Christmas tree planned to purchase in my brain, but have not budgeted towards it. There are so many things floating around in my brain. I also would really love to put a vacation under the tree for myself. When all of that is happening, it feels like, how could I possibly stop and set a goal? There's too many things going on, right? So that's another thing that's really dysregulating. What I just told you was very dysregulating, and I might have triggered some of you. And for that, I am truly sorry, because there are so many things. And there's probably about 80 things I didn't say in that moment of what's about to happen this holiday season. And so when we think about goal setting, it can feel so overwhelming, because when we set goals, we don't set them to be realistic. We set them to be so unrealistic and far-fetched that when we fail, we're like, yep, there it is. And guess what? For our ADHD brains, there's so much evidence for us to look back on how we failed. So many unfinished projects, so many things that we've tried to do in the past that never worked, so many things that we can say, well, that's never going to work for me, so why would I ever try again? Okay, so it feels yucky. It makes sense why. Okay, I'm even feeling a little discouraged right now, and I'm needing to come at you with a really inspiring podcast. So let's turn it around. But first, let's talk about what we believe and why we get there. So all of these things, these feelings, these thoughts come from what we believe, right? And I talk about this when it comes to manifesting. This is a huge part of how we get to the end of something. But manifestation is really just setting a goal, but understanding the beliefs that come with it. So when we think about the beliefs, we might say, well, I never finish what I start, right? So now we ruminate about that and we find all the reasons in our brain of why we never finish what we start. Okay? I can't trust myself to follow through. And now let me look at all of the reasons why I can't trust myself to follow through. All right, we've got about 385 unfinished projects here. Okay. When we tell ourselves these beliefs, our nervous system is now bracing itself for the failure, for what we already believe and know to be true. And before I started setting goals or seeing how capable I was of getting to the other side, quote unquote, other side, I would try to just hope for the best. I've done a lot of hoping for the best. And to a degree, I still sometimes hope for the best. I just go at it and I have these thoughts in my brain and I'm like, okay, this year I'm going to set more boundaries, and then I don't. Or I say, this year I'm going to stick within a budget for shopping, and then I don't have a plan and don't stick within a budget, and then end up paying more credit cards off in January and February. Or I say that I want to do all of these things, like send holiday cards and make plans with friends, and then it gets to be the week before Christmas and I'm like, holy smokes, how did everything happen without me even being aware of it? It's like making a plan or setting a goal happens in your conscious brain. It happens when you're truly actively thinking of it. But so often we are in autopilot. We are constantly acting from our fight or flight brain, reacting to everything around us and telling ourselves we can't possibly slow down, because if we do, we're going to miss what's next and I'm never going to be able to catch up. So we're behind. We have no time to pause and we're never going to be able to catch up. What's interesting is that the trust that we can build within ourselves comes from tiny actions. It comes from tiny moments, small ways of showing proof that we can do it. I was playing around with my project management software probably about 6 months ago, and I was so annoyed because I come from a project management background in the corporate world, and I couldn't get this software to work for me. I planned the most meticulous projects, but I couldn't follow them in a way to keep myself on track. Now, most of the time when you're working on a project, there's multiple team members. So I am multiple team members in one, and that feels off on its own. There's one reason why it didn't work out too well. But then I was like, well, maybe I'm just trying too hard. And maybe it's not realistic that I try to plan out these 3-month projects with just myself. So what if I tried to do a 1-day project? What would that look like? Or even a 1-hour project? So I did. And it felt so good. And it was so easy. And it was so little. But I was like, oh, cool, I can do this. And then guess what I tried to do? I tried to jump into the big project again. But from there, it helped me understand that, no, I needed to create a project that was just a little bit bigger. Maybe like a 2-day project or a 3-day project to make this easier. Another thing I've also shared a little bit about my money journey, and I would love to be out of debt one day. When I was 18 years old, I signed up for student loans immediately. I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know how they would impact me financially, and my dad co-signed for them, and it just made sense. So I went to a school that was way too expensive, but I had the best time, and that was amazing. And at the same time, I've been in debt my entire adult life. And the relationship I've had with money has not been the greatest. And I've been reading a lot of books on this, but one of the goals I have is to not be in debt anymore. Just don't want to have the bad debt, the consumer debt, the high interest debt, the stuff that just feels so gross. And it has been my entire adult life. I'm 39 years old now, and it's been over 20 years of just seeing myself it felt like I was sinking lower and lower. Now, over the years, I've gotten much better with money, but one of my goals now is to truly understand how to have a relationship with money that makes sense. I was recently on another podcast that I'll link below where I talk a little bit more about doing it differently this year. So I share this because I can't get out of debt tomorrow unless I win the lottery. And that would be really awesome. Thank you. But also, I cannot get out of debt tomorrow, but I can take steps toward that today. So every day I do take tiny steps toward getting out of debt or learning about money. So sometimes I'm reading about it. I'm reading articles. I'm learning about what investing means. And it's this little bits and pieces of information that add up over time. So when I think about building wealth for myself and my husband and building wealth for my kids and teaching them what I'm learning now so that they have this really strong foundation with which to build off of, it helps remind me that even on the yucky days, even when I feel like I've made a mistake or seen myself as not making the right steps, I still show up and I budget, or I look at my money when it feels uncomfortable and I still do it because I know where I'm going. But those little bits of proof add up and I see how far I've now come. Now, are there days that I still show up and I'm like, why is this my life? And what have I done? Yeah, absolutely. It's ridiculous. And I know where I'm going, and that feels really incredible. So talking about money, we're talking about goals. Then how do we do it? How do we set a goal, and how do we reframe the way we feel about it? So I just talked a little bit about building the trust with yourself by setting goals that are realistic and being realistic with yourself. I was at yoga the other day and I showed up. I scheduled the yoga class. I hadn't gone in a really long time. And it's so funny, when I stop going, I almost feel like I need to show up in this grand way in order to get back into it. But there was no grand entrance or anything. I just showed up.
Let's take a quick break.
If you're enjoying this episode, I have a quick favor to ask. Could you take just a minute to leave a review? I know. Every podcast asks, but here's the deal. Your review helps other ADHD brains like ours find this show. Plus, reading them seriously makes my day. So if something in this episode has helped you, made you laugh, or even made you feel seen, let me know by leaving a quick review. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you more than you know. Now, back to the episode.
And there was one pose that we started to do. And the way that she walked us through it, we were standing on both feet. And the instructor said, okay, now lift your foot off the ground. Just kind of touch the toes. Balance, but let your toes continue to touch the ground. And then just hover your foot above the ground. And as you're hovering, go ahead and bring your arms up to be, horizontal with the ground. And then if you are ready to do this, go ahead and lift your foot up a little bit more. If you want to try to continue to lift it up so your leg is perpendicular with the other, you can do that. And if you can picture this in your mind, so your leg is up off the ground and your arms are horizontal to the ground. I was like, oh my gosh, if she had told us to just go up into this position, I would be all over the floor right now. My balance would be off. I probably would have broken my bones or something. But it was so beautiful the way that she explained getting into this pose. The first thing you do is just lift your heel off the ground so your toes are still touching. Like, oh, but you're still doing the pose, right? Like you're still taking action toward it. It's just the smallest, most realistic action you can take in the moment. And to me, yoga is always a metaphor for me. If I can breathe through the most ridiculous of poses, then I can breathe through life. I even love hot yoga. And part of it is because it's so uncomfortable. But if you can breathe through it, it's like, okay, I can do this. And it feels so good afterward. So that was really impressive to me to see that even in yoga, even if in these physical things, taking the smallest step in action forward can help us so much. My husband and I, for a time, were setting goals in the beginning of the week too. This was when we first got here, just talking about what we really wanted to achieve that week and what made sense. And my husband does this thing where he wants to do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and 100 jumping jacks, and he wants to do it every single day. And I am his wife. I also know I'm not his coach, right? Like I'm not the person that he's going to listen to. And I was like, cool. Do you think that that's realistic? And he's like, yeah. It absolutely is. He also has ADHD. I'm like, okay, so you're going to do that every day? And he's like, yeah, well, maybe 4 times this week, right? So he's lowering it, but he's still doing all of these things. Meanwhile, we haven't truly worked out the entire summer. So when you think about actually doing all of these things, it doesn't sound that hard, but the physical action of doing all those things is a lot. And so I said, well, can I make a recommendation? He's like, sure. Right. And he's looking at me, he's like, I know where this is going. And I'm like, what if you just tried 20 reps of each, and only did it twice this week to prove to yourself that you can do it? And he's like, well, I'm going to prove to myself that I can do all of it because that is what I'm capable of. And I'm like, cool. And I stopped because in this, if you are at that point, I can't tell you anything to make you believe something else. But what I can tell you is that if you get to the point that you have not achieved the goal that you set out to, you can try again. You can just modify the goal. And it's not to say don't aim high or don't try to achieve the world, but also try to understand where you're at, because it's not as if you're just trying to work out and hit all these reps. You're also, searching for a job and trying to be a husband and trying to help out. There's so many other things that are going on, right? I'm speaking for my husband in this case. It's okay to be realistic with yourself, and it's okay. It could be a perceived failure, right? He didn't necessarily hit the reps that he wanted to hit, but he also can come back to it and reevaluate. When you're setting goals and you're trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B, we're in the messy middle again. Yay. We've got to find a way to be realistic with ourselves. But even more than that, we've got to believe it's possible. We've got to believe it. So we talked about beliefs in the beginning of the episode, but what's the belief that's going to get you there? And I'll tell you. The first one is I can trust my pace, that maybe it doesn't happen as fast as I want it to. And maybe I try to understand what time is. That's cute. We're not doing a time episode today, but time is fleeting. I could get out of debt tomorrow, easy peasy. But having another belief of trying again means I'm learning, not failing. That's why I keep showing up in my money journey. That's why I keep showing up in this podcast. Oh my gosh, there have been so many times that I want to run away because it's not good enough. But it is. I'm going to keep showing up because I'm going to keep showing up to get better. I'm showing up because I know that what I'm doing is so much bigger than just this episode. It's so much bigger than just organizing. I don't talk about just organizing because every client I have worked with that has ADHD, oh my gosh, we can't just talk about decluttering. It's so much more than that. Another belief that you can hold true to is progress counts even when it's messy, and it's going to be messy. And some days you're going to wake up and you're going to look around. This is when it comes to organizing. You're going to be like, what have I done? Why did I start doing this? Because now I notice everything. Why? But also, it's progress. Things are going to get messier before they get better. And that's why the messy middle of change is so uncomfortable, because we can't get to this perfect place we're envisioning in our head until we start to take action. So when you're thinking about this holiday season, or even the next 30 days, the next 30 days, the next 90 days, whatever you want to pick, what is one thing that could make a really big difference? And that's where it gets complicated too, because you're like, well, if I do this, I must do this, and then I must do this, and then this, and this. But what's cool about actually setting one goal is you learn so much about yourself in so many other ways. One thing my husband and I just started doing is meal planning on a regular basis. Every morning we we pull up our grocery store sales and we're shopping the sales because grocery prices are so expensive. And we're trying to just be very conscious about what we're eating. We're looking at our week ahead to understand this. But here's the thing. A year ago, I would not have been able to do this. In fact, right now, it's still very uncomfortable. I kind of can't stand it. In fact, now when it comes up, I'm like, why are we doing this? It's awful. But also, I know that if we don't do it, we're going to get to the point where we're starving and we don't have a plan. So we just order out or we make silly decisions because our brains are so tired and we can't think outside the box anymore because our lives are so busy. But I wouldn't have been able to do it a year ago because there's so much I learned about setting goals and achieving certain things this year. So I got to this point. I proved to myself all of these other things that I could do so I could get there. And for me, I needed to do some other things first before meal planning became the most important thing in the moment. But I was able to do it because I proved to myself I could do so many other things. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I need to meal plan too, sure. But do you also have 15 other plans that you're trying to achieve right now? Okay, well then maybe that's not realistic for the holiday season when we're naturally going to take on way more than we could ever possibly imagine because we haven't really estimated the amount of time it's going to take to do all of these things because it's not what we do. Okay. So in the end, when we think about the chaos and the expectations this season, just remember that you can trust your pace. Trust yourself to take care of yourself, to slow down if you can. Maybe that's a goal that you have, or to recognize when your brain is telling you that you don't have time to do anything, or recognize when your body's trying to tell you to rush or speed up when you actually do need to slow down just a little bit. And maybe just even recognize the way that this conversation makes you feel, the setting goals thing. One thing I have noticed, especially on social media, is like, oh, there's so many funny ADHD memes, right? Like we forget things and then we lose things and we walk into rooms and we can't remember all of that. It's all very real and it all happens. Whether you're at the stage where you've conquered it all or you're just at the beginning of understanding it. But also, what I want to encourage you to understand is that just because those memes exist doesn't mean there's not ways to understand your brain in a way that you can do certain things. Like for example, like what are goals, right? With ADHD, we hope for the best, but also goals help us understand if we're making progress, and writing them down and like truly trying to keep track of them as, consistently or even inconsistently as possible helps us understand if we're making progress or not, to give ourselves credit for all this work that we put into it. And when we're not keeping track, when we're not seeing the progress, and when we're not trying to aim for something that we can actually measure and truly understand the realisticness of getting there, then we fall short and then we feel like we've done nothing at all. But then the next time we start, we don't realize how much progress we made in the first place because we're not keeping track of any of it. It's beneficial to know where you're going. It's beneficial to have like an aim, right? To aim for something. Have you ever heard the phrase, shoot for the moon? If you miss, you'll land among the stars. I always really liked that, but I think it means more in this moment. We always shoot for the moon. We are shooting for like all the moons. You want me to hit a moon? I'll hit every moon from every single planet. But when we don't, when we land among the stars, we're not giving ourselves enough credit for that. If you're not a visual person, I mean, like when you're trying to do it all, but you don't give yourself credit for like trying and learning from what you tried, even though it didn't work, you're not seeing the real path that you're on. You're making progress. Every single one of you has made progress and has gotten you here to this point. So think about setting a goal, just one. Maybe you hope for the best on everything else, but set one goal and see what that does for you. And if you're familiar in the corporate world with SMART goals, I'm going to go over it real quick. Just a little synopsis. Write it down. Okay. Specifically, what do you want? What do you specifically want to achieve? Can you measure it? Right? So like if I'm trying to set boundaries, how the hell will I measure that? What does that even look like? Is it action oriented? Can I take action toward this? Is it realistic? Can I actually achieve this? Is this something I can actually do? Have I even done it before? Can I prove to myself now that I can do it? Is it realistic? And is it time-based? Have you actually set a goal and said, I'm going to achieve this by this amount of time? You all know that we thrive on deadlines. Give yourself a deadline and give yourself something to work toward for you. In the end, what do you want? What do you want this holiday season? Also, you guys should make a list for yourselves. I think I said this last year too, but make a list for what you want this holiday season. Don't Don't just tell me, get me anything, right? Make a list for what you want and then give it to people and see what it's like to actually get what you want during the holidays. So just an idea. Maybe those of you who are people pleasers out there, like, I could never do this. But yeah, you can. You can actually do it, because if you don't ask for what you want, people are going to get what they think you need. And it's probably going to be something that sits in a package all year without you actually using it. So ask for what you want. Thanks so much for tuning in. On that note, next week is Thanksgiving, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our trip across the country and what I have learned.
Thanks so much for listening to Organizing an ADHD Brain. Just remember, I am not a doctor or a mental health professional. Everything I share here comes from my own lived experiences or my professional experience coaching other ADHD humans. If you need medical or mental health advice, please reach out to a licensed medical professional. What you hear on this podcast is for support and education, and how you use the information is completely up to you. For more resources, free downloads, and different ways to work with me, whether through coaching or the community, please go to organizinganadhdbrain.com. And don't forget, the perfect place to start is right where you are.